Coming up on iOS Today, Rosemary Orchard is taking the lead, folks, because it is finally time for the Shortcuts episode. Rosemary Orchard walks you through how to get started in Shortcuts, some of the things that are available there, explains what in the world Shortcuts is, and everything in between. By the time you finish this episode, you will have a basic understanding of the Shortcuts tools and just a glimpse at what's possible when you start to play around with Shortcuts. I learned just as much as any of you out there listening. You are going to love this episode. I am sure of it. So stay tuned for iOS Today.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Casper. It's time to break up with your old bed and move on to better sleep. Upgrade today by going to casper.com/iOS Today and use code iOS Today for $100 off select mattresses. And by ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is an app that reroutes your internet connection through its secure servers so your ISP can't see the sites you visit. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/iOS Today. Hey, hello, and welcome to iOS Today, the show where we talk about all things iOS, iPadOS, watchOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, CarPlay systems, everything to do with Apple and its various operating systems, all here on iOS Today. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary Orchard.
Hello, Rosemary. How are you today?
Oh, I'm excited. We always have fun shows planned, but this show's been in the works for a while. We've teased it a couple of times, and I'm hoping people really enjoy it.
Yes, I know I am looking forward to this one. Folks, this is the Shortcuts episode. I had talked before about how one of the most amazing things is in being a co-host with Rosemary, there have been times where folks have written in with questions. And, I have a basic understanding of shortcuts and different automation options that are available on iOS. And so I would use that knowledge in the past to try to answer questions to the best of my ability. And so sometimes there would be a question that I'd be going, yeah, I just don't really think there's a way to solve that without some very complicated method to do so. And then I would inevitably, drop it in the show or send it to Rosemary, and then she'd come up with some elegant solution for it. And so I thought, and she thought that it would be a good idea to do an episode that is kind of understanding, getting started with, and getting into the basics of shortcuts to sort of build things up from there. Because there's a very powerful application available to every iOS and iPadOS user that many people may not take advantage of and not know is available to them. So I think before we even dig in, and maybe you've got a whole thing planned out, but let's temporarily just pretend that anyone tuning in has no idea even what we're saying when we say shortcuts. What is that app, and what can people do with it? And then feel free to take it away from there, Rosemary.
Yeah, that is actually what I was going to start with. So what's in our outline that we've got here behind the scenes is just, some of the core content. But to start with, Shortcuts is an app that is pre-installed on every iPhone and every iPad. And it allows you to chain a series of actions together. So, for example, that could be turning on Do Not Disturb for a meeting and opening a new note with the title of that meeting. Or it could be that every time you open the Books app on iOS, it puts your phone in dark mode because you much prefer everything being in dark mode when you're reading. And there are so many things that you can do with this. And if we take a look at my iPad here, then this is the Shortcuts application. And you saw the icon on screen before if you're watching the video version, which especially for this episode, I highly recommend you do. But essentially, you have shortcuts, and you can see here there's 653 on this iPad. It's a test iPad, so there's been a lot of stuff that's just built up on here, and I've not deleted it. But if you want to see what kind of things you could do with shortcuts, then I would suggest the best place to start is actually the gallery. And that's here at the top in the left on your iPad, or it's at the bottom on the right on your iPhone. And if you look in the gallery, you'll see, for starters, there's a section right here called Starter Shortcuts, which is amazing. But underneath this, there's a section called Shortcuts from your apps, where you can see things that you do regularly. And your apps have said to Siri and Shortcuts, hey, this person does this a lot. So, for example, from last week with the dice application that I talked about, it's suggesting I roll a d20. Well, that's something I do. Or show my VIP letterbox in Mail. That's something else I do regularly. But the next part of Shortcuts is not just chaining your actions together. So say, for example, opening the VIP mailbox in Mail, it's doing that automatically for you. So, for example, at 9 o'clock in the evening, sending you your schedule for the next day, or whenever your alarm goes off in the morning, automatically turning on the lights in your bedroom. But that's not a home automation. That's a Shortcuts automation, which is linked to your alarm. So whenever you change your alarm, you don't have to change when your lights turn on and things like that. So if you scroll down a little bit here in the gallery, then there should also be, and it's probably right at the bottom now because I've been messing around. It's hidden itself. But there will be a section somewhere with suggested automations. And automations, you can have personal automations, and there's also home automations, which we're not going to touch here today because we've got plenty to talk about. But personal automations allow you to do things based on times, alarms, being places, leaving places, when Siri thinks you're going places, emails you receive, messages you receive, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, applications, do not disturb, your battery level, when your phone goes on charge. I have one when my phone goes on charge, it checks what time it is. And if it's after 10 p.m., it puts it in do not disturb for me. Because then, if I turn do not disturb off, maybe, I'm staying up late, then, this makes sure it's on when I go to bed because I always put my phone on a charger. And some of these, like the time, the battery, the charger, do not disturb, those happen 100% automatically. Other ones, you might have to, tap it when it pops up and say, yes, I want to run it. This will be things like you getting to a specific place, because I've arrived at the office is kind of nebulous. GPS is not super, super accurate. And connecting to Wi-Fi, again, is something that you can do without explicitly meaning to do it. If you walk past a Starbucks and connect to the Starbucks Wi-Fi, do you always want the Starbucks app to open? No. But you can set that up so that it'll prompt you to do that, and then you can do it. And that's, kind of the background behind Shortcuts. Now, there are 4, hopefully, pre-installed starter shortcuts on your device. And these ones are built and they come for everybody. And so there's a music quiz, there's a Shazam shortcut, there's texting your last message, and there's taking a break. And I just want to give people a little overview of how this works. So if I tap on any one of these bubbles, then it should run it. And you can see that there's a little button, and here it's got my last message and got my last image, and it's open messages ready for me to start typing. Or try and start typing because my Bluetooth keyboard has disconnected. There we go. So I could start typing Mikah. And if Mikah was on this device, it would send him this message. And I'm sure he would absolutely love my purple Safari icon. But if you want to have a look at how this works, which I'm guessing if you're watching this show or listening to this show, you do, then there's 3 buttons in the top right corner in that icon. And if you tap on that, then you can see the actions. Now, this is an iPad, so over on the right-hand side, I've got a search, and I've got categories of action types, some suggested actions. And if I were to tap into, say, apps, then it'll load for a moment, and then clock, then I can see actions related to the clock app. And lots of apps that aren't Apple apps have actions. So HomeCam, my app cap from last week, has actions, and there's a view camera action, and there's also a specific action for viewing my hallway camera, because that's one that I actually have open on my other iPad here while I'm recording, because I once heard a very funny noise when I was recording. I think it was MacBreak Weekly, and I was in the middle of a podcast. It sounded like somebody had walked into my house. So I have a couple of cameras set up, and I watched them. They hadn't. It was just my neighbor's front door banging, and it sounded weird because I had noise canceling headphones on. But and it's great to have that, because then I actually have a button on that iPad that says, hey, I'm recording a podcast. And it does a couple of things on that iPad for me, including opening the HomeCam app to show me that camera. So I'll know if everything's there. And it's just a background thing and nothing ever happens on it, though. It looks like my cat's out there playing at the moment. So, it's handy. I can see that my kitty's playing. But here I can see these actions. So the first thing it's doing, it's getting one photo, and then it's going to send a message. And if I were to delete that action, then obviously that's gone. And I do that by tapping the cross in the top right. But if I go back into messages and tap send message, then you can see it automatically puts this last photo thing here. And it's doing that. And there's a little line, a minuscule line appearing between these two actions, which shows that they're actually connected together. So if I tap on last photo, then you'll see that there's a whole bunch of things here. The thing that I really want you to know about is this button here in the bar that says reveal action. And if I tap reveal action, then the photos action has now got a dark shadow around it. And that's showing me that this last photo comes from this action. And this is a variable in shortcuts. Basically, it's like a placeholder or a special post-it note, which has got information on it. And while the shortcut exists, that post-it note exists and has that information for the entire time. And then at the end, all the post-it notes magically go into a digital shredder and they're gone, and that's it. And they have a very short lifespan. But that means that I can take that photo and send it with this message right here, which is how shortcuts really can start to become really powerful. So now we've had a look at this. I'm actually going to show people a couple of shortcuts that I have created thanks to some questions that we've had from our viewers and listeners, because we've got amazing listeners who've got lots of questions, and they have sent some of these in. And if we don't get to all of them today, then that's okay. We will have a shortcuts corner coming up in a future episode. But what I'm going to do to start with is I'll read out our first question, which was from Dominic, which is there a way to create a shortcut to initiate an instant group video or audio FaceTime call to a predefined contact group, please? Ooh. I'm currently managing this now from the Messages app by tapping on our family name at the top and triggering the group FaceTime call. Well, that's a great way to do it. And so if people haven't done that before, they should be doing that. And then Dominic continues, as much as this works fine, I would much prefer creating and adding a shortcut to do this so that it sits alongside my other phone call and FaceTime shortcut widgets I've created. I've tried several ways to create this shortcut, but I'm not getting exactly what I need. And, there's a couple of reasons behind this, Dominic. First of all, the groups that exist in Messages are purely inside Messages, and they're not really accessible anywhere else. This is a shame, and it's something I hope that Apple improves. But there is a way to do a group FaceTime call. And I've got a shortcut, and we're going to include the link to this in the show notes. And I'll just allow this access to FaceTime because I did not set this one up on this iPad. But there's an action for FaceTime. And so the action for FaceTime, and I've set it up so that when you first install it, it'll look something like this. But if I just clear this right here. So the FaceTime action calls somebody or somebody's plural. And if you tap on the FaceTime on the left, you can see FaceTime and FaceTime audio. Now you can only choose one of these, or you can choose ask each time. And if I choose ask each time, sorry, there's an iOS bug where my mouse won't work there, and then you run the shortcut, then when you run the shortcut, it will ask you what type of call you want to do. And it will ask you every single time you run the shortcut. So the ask each time action is perfect for this because it means that you'll just input that data every single time. And that's how I use a lot of my shortcuts, actually, like preparing apps to go in the show notes. That's all done with ask each time. So I'll just tap away from that menu to cancel it. And the next part that we need to manage is the group. Now, as I mentioned before, the group is not available outside of Messages. It's only there. However, I'm guessing a family group, you probably don't have new people join your family every single day. So what you can do is if you tap on the contact, then you can select multiple people. So I have David Sparks here. And This is a little strange because it was working perfectly on my other iPad earlier. So I'm just going to switch over to my iPhone. And if I select, so in the next beta or in the next version of iOS 14.5 that releases, then it should allow you to choose multiple people. So I've just added Mikah here, and I'll add David Sparks. There we go. And if I tap done, then both of these people are here. Now, for demo purposes, I'm actually just going to quickly remove David because I don't want him to get a call in the middle of iOS today and think that it's not working. But now I've got my special ask each time action here in the call type, and then it's just going to call Mikah. But you can put in a whole bunch of people right here. And then if you do this, if you run it, it gives you an option. And I'm just going to do a FaceTime audio call. And look, it's calling Mikah Sargent on FaceTime audio. Perfect. And I absolutely love this feature. It works really, really well. So you're going to have to set up the groups manually, copying people over. You might want to do that on an iPad in split screen or something like that. But what I've done is I've set up this shortcut so that when you click the link and you try and install it, then it's going to ask you which contacts you want to set up in that shortcut. And so if I just switch back to my iPad really quickly, you will need to look inside of settings and then go into the shortcuts section in settings. Okay, so that's in with sort of mail reminders, voice memos, that sort of area. And there's a setting here called allow untrusted shortcuts. Now, untrusted shortcuts just means Apple didn't make it. So it's not from inside of the shortcuts application. It can mean that somebody like I made it, somebody like Matthew Castanelli on Smart Tech Today, he's got a website with a whole bunch of these and he's just revamped that. So you might want to check those out. But it means anybody can make it. Now, theoretically, somebody could make a shortcut that copies all of your contacts and emails them off to somebody else. But you should look at a shortcut when you try to install it and see what happens. So if I just pop back into drafts where I had this link earlier, and I tap on the link for the shortcut. If you view it in a browser, then it will come up with something like this. And then you just tap Get Shortcut. And then it should pop over to the Shortcuts application. And here is where you can both rename it. So I can give it a name, which would be something like perhaps Call Mikah. And then you can see what it's going to do. And it very explicitly says here, do this. And then you need to tap the big red button, which I know everybody will automatically not want to tap the big red button, but you do want to tap the big red button here to add your untrusted shortcut. And here you can go ahead and you can tap the plus button and you can add your contacts right here. So I've got some people that I work with. Mikah, you really ought to be in this list on this demo iPad. I'll sort that out later. And then you can tap done. And now, of course, this shortcut doesn't have a great name, but this also means I can run this through Siri. So
Can I actually pause you real quick here, Rosemary? God, you're so great, Anthony. For anybody who's not watching, he just popped me up as a little bubble, and it's just fantastic, and I appreciate you. Anyway, I was wondering if you could explain how, and maybe this has changed in later betas, but it was my understanding that the add untrusted shortcut thing is not immediately available to folks, and it's only after they try to add an untrusted shortcut that toggle pops up. Have they changed that, or is that still the case? Because I don't want folks to go looking for it, be unable to find it, and then try to toggle it on.
Right. The setting is always there in settings. I'll just pop back to settings on my iPad, and we're both bubbles on the screen. I love that. And you can see here under the allow untrusted shortcuts. Now it says allow receiving untrusted shortcuts from outside the gallery. That's the gallery inside of shortcuts that I showed before. However, if you have never, ever, ever run a shortcut, then this will say something else, which is you must run a shortcut before you can allow untrusted shortcuts. So they want you to, give an idea that you know what you're doing. So what you can do then is if you're not quite sure what kind of shortcut you might want to run, either just pop into the starter shortcuts section and run one of those, take a break, music quiz, something like that, or have a look inside of your gallery And just pick something, a shortcut from your apps. Oh, review my inbox and drafts. Perfect. Love this one. Tap Add to Siri. Now, Add to Siri is very important because the name of your shortcut is what you can do. So now, if I tap and hold here, review inbox. Oh, there we go. It did open drafts for me. I just had a preview pane open in drafts. Voila. I'm in drafts. So the name of the shortcut is what allows me to run this. And this does mean that it might be a little bit hairy with the name that I gave this shortcut of Call Mikah. Because guess what? If you say, hello, Apple lady, call Mikah, then she's going to use the default phone application and just make a call or do whatever it is that she would usually do. So you do need to think a little bit about how you name things in order to use that. So I would probably actually rename this one if I wanted to use it through Siri. But you don't have to. But that is actually this shortcut right here is how Dominic, or Dom, I think he referred to himself in his email, can go ahead and call a group of his family members with FaceTime audio or video, and he'll be asked each time if he wants an audio or a video call.
That's fantastic and a lot simpler than I thought it would be. So that's good.
Yeah, it's one action. It's literally just one action, and he's definitely going to be able to do it. There are no problems there. So, that was our first one. Our next one is a little bit more challenging, and this comes from Kevin, who I believe is the same Kevin who sent us a little bit of feedback for later in the show. But he says, I have a daily reminder set up to take my 5,000 IU of vitamin D every day. Would it be possible to have a shortcut which can mark the reminder for the day as complete, whilst also recording that I took the vitamin D in the health app at the same time? Kevin. Well, Kevin, you'll be pleased to know.
These are my kind. I love these health-based shortcuts. So I'm really pumped to hear about how you've solved this one.
Yeah, well, this one was perhaps a little tricky to do because I'm going to have to switch to my iPhone for this one. Now, anything involving the health application and shortcuts you are going to want to do on your iPhone, not your iPad. And there's a very simple reason for this. The health app does not exist on your iPad. The data is not there. So the actions, they kind of show up on the iPad, which is over here on my right, but you can't really do anything with them. So I would recommend that you do this on your iPhone. Now, I'm actually going to start by creating a brand new shortcut here and just show you how easy it is to log something. So I'm going to tap in the bar at the bottom, and then if I go into apps and give it a moment to load and scroll down, there's the health app right here. And when I tap this, I can see I've got 5 different actions that I can do. But the action that I'm looking for just to log vitamin D is log health sample. And that's it. And then you tap on the type, and there's everything from congestion, dizziness, fatigue, height, if you're maybe tracking a child's height, I presume. And if you scroll down to V, then there is vitamins A through K, and that includes vitamin D. Now, the specific measurement IU is not here. There's mcg, mg, kilograms. I would not recommend taking a kilogram of vitamin D every day. Pounds, stone, ounces, etc. So you'll need to double check exactly what IU is equivalent to in mcg. But if I tap this and I just input 5,000, then that theoretically will just do it. And the date here, it says optional. I'll just switch back to light mode to see if that makes the contrast any higher of this optional. No, it does not. It's grayed out, but that means that if you want to say that you took it yesterday, you could input a different date there, but you don't have to. And if you want to get a little bit more information about this action, then you can tap on the app icon in the top left and then tap show info, and it will tell you exactly what this does. So log health sample says, adds a data point into the health app. You can log anything that the health app supports, including your weight, steps taken, running distance, calorific intake, and more. And then it tells you about some of the optional information. So the date, possibly an end date, and then what it gives you the result. Now, we're not really interested in that, but if I just run this now, then that's it. It's logged a health sample. And if I pop over and look in the health app, then I should be able to see under, I'll just search for vitamins. There we go. I have taken my vitamin D today, apparently. And I can add this to favorites and everything right here. But if I tap on that, then I'll see exactly what that data point is, which is perfect. However, Kevin did not just request that we log that in the health application because he wants a reminder as well. And there are two ways that you can do this. So number one would be inside the automations tab, because you don't actually need to use reminders to remind yourself to do something. I know it's logical, but instead you could create a personal automation at a time of day and say, create that for 9 o'clock in the morning, have that run every day, and then log your health sample here. And what this will then do, if you tap on the next, you'll see that there's this toggle here called Ask Before Running. And if you leave that on, then at 9 o'clock in the morning, the Shortcuts app will pop up and say, hey, would you like to run your shortcut? And you can say yes, and then it will go ahead and log your vitamin D for you. Now, this isn't perfect because it will, it will say, do you want to run your shortcut? No, you should take your vitamin D, and then it will log it. So I can leave that alone. And if I want to get rid of an automation, I just swipe and then I can delete. But if you want to stick with reminders, which has loads of advantages, it stays on your home screen, you've got custom names for things, everything like that, by all means, do that. We just need to find something in the reminders app, which is got the title of whatever it is. So I've put the title of the reminder here, as Take Vitamin D. And I've got a condition here where I'm looking for reminders that are not completed, because I'm presuming this is a daily reminder, and you don't want to be modifying an increasing number of reminders every single time. Your shortcuts can get slower and slower and slower because the number of completed reminders will hopefully be increasing every day. And then what we do is we edit the reminder. So there's actions to find reminders, there's actions to delete reminders, add new reminders, and there's also actions to edit reminders. And editing reminders and calendar events is actually pretty new. That only came out, I think, just before Christmas. But then we can set the is completed of the reminders that came from the finding reminders above to yes. And then underneath that, we can log the health sample. Now, this is the one that I'm going to include the links to in the show notes, Kevin. So you're going to have to figure out what approach is best. But little bonus for you. If you decide that you want to do this with an automation, tap on the little app icon in the left of the action and then copy that. And then when you create your automation...
I didn't know I could do that.
Exactly. I'm just going to leave this here. You will need to just add a random action. So I'm going to add a calling one to my mum. And then you can tap on that one and then paste. Voila.
Wow.
And you can paste above or below. And that means that that's set up. Now, some of you might remember earlier I said the date field is optional. And if you're watching the video feed, then you can see, hey, the date here says current date. Where is this from? And if we tap in this field, then I can actually delete that. But you can see above my keyboard, there's this button that says variables. And then there's ask each time, clipboard, current date, and shortcut input. And depending on what you've got in your shortcut, there may be other items here as well. The current date is a special variable, which always has the date right now. And you can format that. So I've just input that there. I am a programmer, I'm a developer, so I'm very used to very explicitly saying this should be this. And I don't leave things to chance just because that's what I do. You don't need to do this. I've just done it so that people can see that it is the current date. So there we go. There's a couple of little tips for you. Have you got any questions on that one, Mikah?
No, I do want to say, I know we don't want to get too advanced here, but one of the things that I set up and that I really enjoy is, so I don't use the built-in reminders app for medicine reminders. I use the app called Do to do my medicine reminders. And when I have that set up, it will, and the reason I use Do is because it keeps buzzing you, keeps reminding you until you do the thing that you intended to do. So I really like it for that. It keeps me from, it keeps me from forgetting to do the thing that I need to do. And so what I did was I set up two things: the normal Do reminder for the medicine that I need to take, and then and then again, this is where it gets advanced. And so, not necessarily for this episode, but if you know a thing or two about shortcuts, on the top of my medicine bottle, I put an NFC tag. And essentially, I go and have to grab my medicine. And so when I do, I just tap my phone onto the top of it, and that logs the medicine or the vitamin in the health app, or vitamin in the health app. At the same time that I can then mark my reminder as completed. And so that one is a really handy one for me. That adds a little bit of, there's something fun about the tactile nature of using an NFC tag, but then you do have to have your phone with you whenever you go to get your medicine. But I usually do, because do is reminding me. So that keeps me going. But that's why I had to mention that I love health-based shortcuts, because I do have a few of those set up for sure.
Yeah. For anybody who's not sure what an NFC tag is, actually, I have a transport card here for the Madrid Metro. And this, it's not like a credit card with a mag stripe or a chip on it, but this has got NFC built into it. And so if I switch back to my iPhone and tap Create Personal Automation, then I've got an option for NFC, and I can scan an NFC tag. And this is actually a question that we've had. I'm not quite sure who it's from, but the NFC tag on your phone is actually around about here. It's just sort of next to the camera. Now, you don't need to tap the NFC card to your phone to make this work. You just need to sort of hold it nearby, and then it scans it. And now it's come up, and I can name this tag, which is Madrid Metro card. Oh, I can't spell today. There we go. And now I can run that automation. Now, I'm guessing most people won't happen to have a Madrid Metro card hanging around. I have one in my passport holder because the last place I went before COVID hit was Madrid for a conference. But you can buy packs of NFC stickers. These are just some white ones from Amazon. Or I also bought some little chips, which are kind of like very thin coins from Amazon too. And they are great for putting places. So you could put one, for example, in your car so that you can tap it and then run an automation. The only thing I'll say is sticking NFC tips, which are, they've got metal and things in, to metal usually doesn't work. And that's because of the shielding and just the way that things bounce around and stuff. There's a whole, explanation for it that's scientific that I don't actually know. So sorry about that. But you can get specific ones which do work on metal. Now, for shortcuts, you don't need to worry about what kind of NFC thing it is, because shortcuts isn't actually doing anything with the data in the NFC tag. It's just reading the ID of it and using that to trigger it. So I actually use my bank cards for some things because I log my expenses, and I'm doing that now with Nudget, which we featured on the show a couple of weeks ago. And I just tap my bank card to my phone. And then, as I've done the purchase and I'm walking out of the store, I've still got my bank card in my hand. And I just, tap it to my phone, and then it runs my shortcut, asks me how much I spent and where, and then I'm done. Perfect. So that works really well. So I'm really pleased with that. And I love those NFC tags too, Mikah.
Absolutely. Let us take a quick break before we come back with more on shortcuts. I do want to tell you about Casper. And I've got a question for you. If you were in a relationship that wasn't supportive anymore, would you stick around, or would you look for something better? That's kind of a tough question, because some of us stick around longer than we should, but I can tell you where you can make that relationship decision very easily. It's time to break up with your bad bed. Many times we're stuck with a mattress or pillow or sheets for years without realizing that the support and comfort just isn't there anymore. But it's okay. It's never too late to reset your rest. Upgrade to Casper and get the great sleep you've been missing. Because honestly, you deserve better. We all deserve better. When it comes to sleep, we deserve so much better. Say bye to your old bed and say hello to Casper. Only Casper mattresses are made with up to 86 supportive gel pods to align your spine and eliminate aches and pains. It's the supportive comfort you need to wake up refreshed and ready to go. U.S. News and World Reports recently named Casper's Wave Hybrid the best overall mattress, and the Casper Original the best foam mattress.
Casper bed frames are made from the highest quality materials to ensure your frame stays looking like new even after years of use. The Haven bed frame is made with premium felted wool for a soft and sophisticated look.
And did you know that Casper also has bedroom accessories? There's soft satin sheets, calming weighted blankets, and even a dog bed for your best bud. Casper has something for everyone. I love my Casper mattress, my Casper pillows, my Casper sheets, my Casper bed frame. I got all the Casper stuff because it's all Casper great, and I am Casper happy with every bit and piece of it. I don't know what I breaking up with the mattress I had before was super easy, and I lay down on that Casper for the first time and never looked back. It was so great. As always, Casper offers free shipping and free returns with no contact delivery. It is time to break up with your old bed and move on to better sleep. Upgrade today by going to casper.com/iOS today and use code iOS today for $100 off select mattresses. That's code iOS today for $100 off select mattresses. Terms and conditions apply. See casper.com for more details. Thanks so much to Casper for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. And we are back with more on shortcuts from Rosemary Orchard.
Well, this is our final shortcut that I'm going to demo today, and this one is the most complicated one that I'm going to talk about, but I think it is well worthwhile. So let me just get rid of my iPhone there. And this is actually a request from Stephen, and I can see, even though his request is specific to him, that a lot of people probably like something similar to this. And his request says, since my wife and I are both retired, there's no set schedule for our lives. I would love to get a text message from myself to myself each night at, say, 9 p.m. with a rundown of my calendar for the next day. I use Fantastical, and of course, Apple's native calendar app has the info. And I display a personal calendar, my wife's personal calendar, and a shared calendar. I'd like to have entries from all three calendars displayed in a single list by time of day from earliest to latest. I could get the text on my Apple Watch and make my plans for the next day. I tried to do it, but I failed. Well, I'm not surprised, Stephen, because this could be quite complicated depending on how you're trying to do it. And so if we just pop open a brand new empty shortcut here on my iPhone, and then we go to add an action. If we look under apps and scroll down, you'll see Fantastical actually has quite a few options available. So a really easy one to do would be to show your schedule for tomorrow, and just do that with an automation. And then it'll pop up probably something like this. And I've got a sweet setup idea booked in for tomorrow morning. And so, that's what's on my schedule for tomorrow. And you can just do that with an automation, then it'll pop up. However, Stephen specifically asked for a text message from himself to himself. And that's where things perhaps get a little bit more complicated. So let's swap over here to my iPad, where in my very best Blue Peter style, which is a children's show over here in the UK, here's one I made earlier. Because the difficulty that we have in the very first place is to figure out what tomorrow is. Because tomorrow, as just a date in shortcuts, is going to come back tomorrow at the same time as you have right now. And if you're looking for calendar events using the calendar application, then you're going to find that it's going to be a little bit trickier to just do something. Because if I just look for calendar events and I drag out this action for find calendar events, I'll just put this right at the top here. And it's frozen. I'll just pop back into my shortcuts and then go back here. There we go. Then you can see that to start with, it says the start date is in the next 7 days. And I can change this to is today, or it's exactly, or it's between, in the next or in the last. Now, in the next, say, 48 hours, that could work, but, things get a little bit more complicated. So the first thing that I had to do was figure out what tomorrow is. Let's just ignore that little comment at the top for now, and I'll come back to that later. So I started by figuring out when the start of tomorrow is, and I used a date action for this. And then I figured out the end of tomorrow. Now, you can see here I've typed that in military time for Americans, or just 24-hour time. And so I've got tomorrow 0000 and tomorrow 23:59. And then I'm looking for events where the start date is between, the first one, the 0000 and the 23:59 option, because I very clearly want everything that's in all of those. And then I've set up 3 calendar options. This iPad does not have 3 calendars, but you could, or it does, but you can tap any of those and change them to select whatever it is that you want. And then we need to create the actual information that's going to go in the text message. And that's where you probably ran into that stumbling block, Stephen, because you can't just say, hey, calendar events, send a message. Or you could, but you're just going to get a list of events. And you're not going to know what time things are at. And that's where it gets a little bit odd. So what you need to do is you need to go through each calendar events. If you think of your calendar events like a little stack of paper, I've got a little stack of Post-it notes here. So you've got a pink one and a blue one, or however many you've got. You just need to go through, and you actually need to process them Post-it note by Post-it note. So you need to just take that first one on the stack and then the next one on the stack and go through until you're done. And so there's a special action called repeat with each, which basically just goes first calendar event, second calendar event, third calendar event. There are no more calendar events. I'm done. And so that's what I'm doing here. And then inside of my repeat with each, I've got a text action. And I'm just going to add a couple of new lines here. And then I will show you how I did this, because I've got start date - end date space title. So that will tell you when the event starts, when the event ends, and its title. And to get this, I used the repeat item. So that's the current event that I'm working with. And if I tap on that repeat item variable that's above my keyboard, then I can insert it. And now you can see what I mentioned way back at the start of the show, which is the different elements of that calendar event. So every calendar event has a title. It's got a start date and end date. It's got something that tells you if it is all day or if it's not all day. You can find out what calendar it's on, what location it's at, if it's got alarms or no alarms, how long it lasts, who organized it, who's attending it, any attachments, notes, URLs, all of those things. Well, I knew that Stephen didn't want that. He just wanted, to know when things were and what they were. So I started by tapping the start date, and then you can see that I've got a little bit more information here. So I can take that start date and I can get a whole bunch of different formats out of it. And the thing is if Stephen is getting the details about his life tomorrow, basically, then he doesn't need the date. Because if you just put the date in every time, then you're going to get a huge block of text, which doesn't help you, because you're just going to see, Wednesday, X day in X month, and then 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. this or whatever. So I just tapped on the date format. And if I go right to the top there, I can select none. And that means that when that start date appears, it's just going to be the time. And that, Stephen, I think is probably one of the most helpful things. And again, the link to this shortcut will be in the show notes. So I repeated that trick with the end date. And I also input the title, which I've managed to just backspace there. Perfect. There we go. Sorry, my iPad is a little crashy, it seems, today. That's what happens when you run betas, folks. So I've got that, and that's text. And then what I've done is so now if you think about it, we've taken one bunch of Post-its, but we've produced a different set of Post-its. And now what I need to do is I need to stick those together. So that's where I've got a combine text action. And this basically just takes all of those and says, okay, each one of these is a line, and I'm going to stick it all together. And now we have a fancy document or a piece of text, and then I'm going to send that. So if I run this shortcut, then it will come up with this. Now, on this iPad, I have no events for tomorrow. So I can actually send this to myself, and it should and it won't send it because there's nothing there, and that's perfect. But if I did have events there, then it absolutely would. And that is where this can be super, super handy, because you can, if there's nothing there, then it will just not do it. Now, I've left the recipients blank here on purpose. And there's a reason for that. And that was a reminder to myself. There's a show more button, and you want to toggle off show when run, because that will make this happen in the background entirely automatically. So now if I select my recipient by tapping on recipients here, oh, and it disappeared on me. Perfect. There we go. So I do this. And when it thinks that it's done, then I can tap run. And because there's no message, it'll pop up and do this. So there is a little bonus that I'm just going to add here, which is if. And I'm just going to drag that in right here. And again, it's just sticking a little bit. Sorry, this is what happens when you have an older demo iPad and your current iPad is installing software updates, which is not what there we go. So now, because I dragged this in after combined text, then it's automatically input combined text for me. And so I want to say if this has any value, and I'm going to tap on that, there we go, then send my message. Perfect. Oh, and it's stuck. Okay. And then what we can do is I can actually copy that and duplicate it. And so I will just do that. And if I tap on the app icon in the top left, then I can duplicate. And I want to just drag this one down into the otherwise section. And then I'm going to tap combine text and remove it. And when I do this, I've got an external keyboard attached, so I can theoretically just tap backspace and it removes it. Then I can actually just type in a message which says, no events tomorrow. And now when I run it, which for people who are curious how I'm doing that without pressing the button, it's Command R if you've got a keyboard attached, then it should have just sent myself a message that says no events tomorrow. And if I switch back to my iPhone, voila, my test account has just sent me a message that says no events tomorrow. So that's how you can do that. And that's pretty darn cool. And I'm really glad that Stephen sent in that request, because it's a little bit of a challenge to get these things to work. And I'm sure people looking at this now are going, oh, wow, okay, so we started with something that was one action, and now we've got how many actions on the screen? The beauty of this is you can just download these and install them. And there are plenty of places to get them. If you're really curious, then, of course, you can send us a request, because we're going to have Shortcuts Corner on the show regularly after this week. But also, Matthew Casanelli, host of Smart Tech Today, which is also another podcast here on the network with Mikah, has a great section on his website with loads of shortcut examples that you can download and install too. So there are plenty of options out there. Go play with the gallery. Just try dragging things together and seeing what crazy stuff happens. Did you know that you can turn a live photo into a GIF or a GIF, depending on how you prefer to pronounce it, and then use that and save that? And that kind of gives us a little bit of a tip for the app cap at the end of the show as well.
Yeah, there you go. Rosemary Orchard, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge here and for digging in, I think, especially on that last one with, it seems complicated, but if you can follow along, of course, with the show, and then once you kind of get the basics, then you get to start playing around. And that's the fun thing to me, is slowly but surely building out from what you have and making your own shortcuts, because that's kind of how it worked for me. Was I may not have known everything right away, but after I played around with stuff, then I started to pick up on, oh, so this is how you do that. And then suddenly you come up with new ideas for things that you want to do. One of my most used shortcuts, it's one for this show, and quite literally all it does is launch the portion of the settings app for display and brightness. And it goes right to the auto lock portion so that I can turn it to never, so that during the show, my screens, my iPhone and my iPad do not auto lock because I found myself having to go to settings, go to display, and basically going into each of those. So now I just have this little app icon on my iPad and on my iPhone. I tap on that. I choose never while the show is on. And then afterward, I can go back in there and shut it off. And I could also sort of step up from there and program it to be tied to the calendar event where at this time, then, it could say, hey, do you want to pop open this part of this? Do you want to pop open this setting and make an adjustment? So it kind of does it a little bit more automatically. So yeah, it's fun to get started and then start to dig in and realize what all you can do from there. So yes, thank you for sharing your knowledge on shortcuts. And as Rosemary pointed out, Shortcuts Corner. So continue to send in your questions, iOS Today at twit.tv, or you can hashtag Ask iOS Today on Twitter, and we will see your questions and your shortcuts requests, and we'll answer those on the show.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. I am loving the requests that we've got through so far, and we've got some other great requests. We didn't get to them today, but we will absolutely get to them in future episodes. So if you've got a question about shortcuts, feel free to send it in, and we'll take a look at them as and when we can. Beautiful.
Let us move on to talk about the news. The first news story here that I wanted to mention is that Apple, who has put forth this idea of privacy labels in apps on the App Store. So this is a section of an app that shows in the App Store that shows you how your data is being used by that app. So it requires that of developers to add this information to their apps. And Apple has gone as far as to create a website. It's apple.com/privacy/labels. And at this website, you can see all of Apple's own apps and see what information is collected in any of them. So you can sort it by the alphabet up at the top. But for example, I opened up Airport Utility and it shows that the developer does not collect any data from this app. So that's one example of an app that doesn't collect any data. The Alarm app does collect usage data from the user, although it is information that is not tied to your identity. But let's go to a big one. Let's go to the Messages app, for example. So we'll scroll down, we'll find the Messages app, and you can see what information is collected. It shows data that is linked to you will be collected for the following purposes. It collects data linked to you for analytics purposes, including your email address and your phone number, as well as your device ID.
Yeah, and it also shows you what data is not linked to you, because of course apps can collect two different kinds of data that is linked to you and data that isn't linked to you. And then of course there's the different kinds of data. So the data that's not linked to you is location-based data, diagnostics, and of course the slightly nebulous other data, which I presume in this case is things like, for example, the percentage of photos sent versus messages or something like that. That could be usage statistics. I'm not sure. But either way, you can also see here, which is really interesting, the privacy practices may vary, for example, based on features you use or your age. And if you tap on that, then there's a little learn more section where they really delve into, the how and the why of that, how that works. I presume some of this is linked to whether or not your Apple ID is actually a child account, which is part of the family sharing. But I'm really glad to see that this is here. And I really hope that Apple in the future start offering a way for developers to just grab this information to display it on their own websites in the same way. I'm personally a firm believer of every app should have a website so that you can get all of the information about it. And it would be great if everybody could display that information everywhere. So it's not just in the App Store, so that you can easily compare, what does the App Store actually say currently? And, the developer's been able to pull that out directly from the App Store, not using copy and paste, but has just been able to go, yep, yoink, like this is my app. I can grab this data and I'm going to stick it here on my website, and things like that. And that would be great. I'd really love that.
Agreed. So yeah, anybody can head to that site and check out that information if you'd like to. Again, that's apple.com/privacy/labels. The next story is one involving Australia. So we've heard a lot of stories out of Australia recently because of Facebook and Google and the lawsuits there, the law that was being passed forth that would essentially require these companies to pay news outlets for hosting or showing information from those articles, from those pieces on the various sites. And so now this article from MacRumors says Australia eyes consumer impact of Google's default search engine deal with Apple. And for anybody who's wondering what the heck that's about, on iPhones on iOS devices, when you first get them and you have the Safari app, the default search engine that's used, if you launch the Safari app and you tap in the search bar at the top and you start to type something in that's using Google to search, and it's set as the default, you can change that to different services, including Bing and DuckDuckGo. But it starts out as Google as default. And Google and Apple actually have a deal, a very lucrative deal, where, quote, Apple receives anywhere between $8 billion and $12 billion a year from Google to make Google the default search engine in Safari. That's a lot of money. And so that is quite a deal for Apple. And now Australia is kind of looking at that and seeing if there are any concerns there and what the impact is on consumers.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I have changed the default search on my iPhone to DuckDuckGo, and that's just because I kind of like the duck icon that they have in the search option, and so why not? But also I like the fact that I can search and I know that everything is being anonymized and so on, and I feel like that's a good option. I do kind of wish that when you set up your iOS device, it said, hey, what search engine would you prefer to use? And it didn't select any of them. And also that it sorted them alphabetically. Because if we look back on that webpage, then it's showing us Google, Yahoo, Bing, DuckDuckGo in that order. And wow, that's a weird order. Are Yahoo paying more money than Microsoft and DuckDuckGo is paying the least amount of money? Is that why they're in that order? Or is it just that Yahoo said, we want to be the second option? Can we give you some money and put us in second place? But if it was alphabetized and there was no default, I'm sure a lot of people would pick Google, and that's totally fine. But I wish that they would just throw that up every time you install an iOS update, or like a big one. So going from 14 to 15 or something, and said, hey, currently your search engine is set to this. Would you like to change it? And then you can say no or yes. And then approximately yearly, people would review that. And then, maybe it would encourage some more people to go, hey, should I be using Google search? Or maybe Bing search is better, maybe. Or maybe DuckDuckGo is better. I did actually switch my parents over to DuckDuckGo, and they barely noticed. My dad said, why is there a duck? And I said, because it's a duck. And it quacks. And he said, okay. And that was it. I've heard no complaints about them not finding things in search or any of that. So I figure we're good.
Wow. That's kind of incredible, if a little dishonest. That's awesome. Let us take a quick break before we come back with more news. I want to tell you about one of my favorite services in existence, and that is ExpressVPN. Maybe there's been a time in your life that you have gone online and you wanted to search something that maybe you just didn't want other people to know about. So it's not necessarily that it's something nefarious or anything like that, but maybe you were watching a movie and you had some trouble suspending disbelief when a very large bunny was able to consume a tree in 10 seconds. And you thought, now, hold on. If a bunny was that large and it tried to eat a tree, it would have taken a lot longer than 10 seconds for that to happen. So you started to go online and do a search, as we were just kind of talking about with search engines, for for, I don't know, square feet of bunny consumption, and you realized, I don't really want my ISP knowing about this and knowing that I'm doing these strange searches. Well, that's where something like ExpressVPN comes in play, because you may be thinking, I'll just flip on incognito mode. I'll just flip on private browsing mode. Incognito mode, private browsing mode, it doesn't hide your activity. The point of those is so that there aren't local saved cached versions of the sites that you're visiting. It's so that it's incognito to you and your browsing experience, so that it doesn't auto-complete whenever you are looking for searches. But that doesn't actually hide your activity. It doesn't matter what mode you use or how many times you clear your browsing history. Your ISP, your internet service provider, can still see all the websites you've visited. That's why, even when I'm at home, I never go online without ExpressVPN. And this is the thing about it. It's kind of wild, is that I often forget I have ExpressVPN turned on because the speeds are so doggone great. ExpressVPN, I've got it on all of my devices, and I flip that switch and it just stays on and it does its thing, and I don't have anything to worry about. Doesn't matter if you get your internet from Verizon or Comcast or any other local ISP. ISPs in the US can legally sell your information to ad companies. ExpressVPN is an app that reroutes your internet connection through its secure servers so your ISP can't see the sites you visit. It also keeps all of your information secure by encrypting 100% of your data with the most powerful encryption available. Most of the time, it just runs in the background seamlessly, and you just tap the button and you're good to go. It's available on all of your devices, your phone, your computer. You can even get it for your smart TV. So you might as well turn it on everywhere. Protect your online activity today with the VPN rated #1 by CNET, by Wired, and by Mikah Sargent. This is ExpressVPN. You just head to expressvpn.com/iOS today. That's an exclusive link where you'll get 3 extra months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/iOS today. expressvpn.com/iOS today to learn more. Thanks so much to ExpressVPN for protecting my privacy online and for being the best VPN I've ever used, and the one that I recommend to others, not only because it's so fast and easy to use and is everywhere, but also because it truly does not log your data, which is something that you can't say for most VPNs out there. Thank you, ExpressVPN. All right. Rosemary Orchard, is Apple making a foldable phone?
I sure hope so. I want to get rid of my iPad mini and just have an iPhone Max that just folds out to iPad mini size in my pocket with Apple Pencil support and a Bluetooth keyboard. That would be amazing.
Okay, now you're selling me. Tell me about the latest patent that could speak to a future with a foldable iPhone.
Well, I think we should start the Apple frequently patents a lot of things, and they just never happen. And this happens with companies everywhere. There are so many things that are patented that never actually come to life. So, this could be another one of those, unfortunately. But it looks like Apple's filed a patent, which is revolving around that foldable screen technology so that it can warm it up. And you might think, why on earth do we need to warm it up? And there's a very simple reason for this. Have you tried bending anything made of glass? If you bend glass,
not recently.
It usually just goes and shatters. I mean, like, I've got a glass right here, and it's really chunky, but it's not bending. And I was going to bring in a wine glass to demo what happens, and then I realized that I value my wine glasses, so that's not a great idea. So if you heat glass up, however, you can bend it, and that's how glass works and made. There's Bristol blue glass is famous around here, and they make things like swans and vases and things like that out of it, or vases. And I've watched them, actually make this stuff, and of course the glass has to be pretty darn hot. And I think that probably the glass would have to be too hot to be able to go from folded one piece on top of the other to fully open. And so I don't know if Apple are planning on actually using like a very thin layer of glass, or if they're just planning on, doing a prolonged lifespan of the plastic. Because of course the other thing is, if you've got a piece of plastic, of course I don't have anything right here on my desk that's particularly plastic and foldable. I suppose I can try the Snickers bar. But if you bend it, then eventually it's going to get brittle and break. If you do that all the time. And so it looks like Apple is going to try and, warm things up a little bit. Now, I don't know about you, but my iPhone, if it's on, is never ice cold. So I wonder how warm they're planning on letting this thing get to do this. But it seems pretty interesting and perhaps a great way of solving, one of the many potential problems with a folding device. Though I would, really love to see one. So I'm hoping that they can get rid of all of those problems soon.
Yeah, it's certainly a fascinating solution, and we will see, if it ends up working out. Well, maybe we'll see. Who knows? Again, as you pointed out, and as we always have to note, Apple patents a lot of stuff, and some of it is real and some of it is not. And oftentimes patents in general are not a thing that speak to the future of a company's product line. So always take those with the heapingest helping of a grain of salt that you can find. Now, this next story is about a product that I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know of any other wireless, like movable, portable AirPlay 2 enabled speakers. And there may be one out there, but certainly not one that is as popular as a popular brand as Sonos. It has just announced its Roam speaker that supports AirPlay 2, which is Apple's audio streaming, well, actually audio and video if you've got video, but certainly in this case, audio streaming framework for devices. So kind of a fascinating thing to have a portable speaker that supports AirPlay 2.
Yeah, well, this actually is the second one which Sonos have released. They also have the Sonos Move, which comes in at the fairly pricey $400 mark. And it's a much bigger speaker, and it's got like a little charging ring where you can take it outside to, say, the garden or something. And there's also a JBL speaker, which it charges via USB-C, and it's got AirPlay 2. It's got a battery built into it, but it's nigh on impossible to get the JBL. The Sonos Move is pretty darn pricey, let's be honest. But the Sonos Roam is considerably less pricey, and it's fairly waterproof. It's IP67. So I've pre-ordered one of these to use in my bathroom while I'm taking a shower, because sometimes, I like to have if I'm going to lounge around, then it's probably a bath just to conserve water. But sometimes it's nice to be able to listen to some music or a podcast or something like that while I'm showering. And the speaker on the iPhone with the sound of the shower just doesn't cut it. And I love having that same music everywhere in my house. So this is going to be hopefully my new solution. So I've pre-ordered, and I'm hoping I'll get one soon so I can report back on the show if it's any good. But it looks pretty darn great, and it's nice and small too. So this is the sort of thing that you could potentially take with you, when traveling and on the road. Though I'm not quite sure how well AirPlay 2 is going to work without a Wi-Fi network, because that's the thing. You're going to have to connect it to the Wi-Fi. So hopefully it will also have just straight up Bluetooth or something built in.
Yes. So it seamlessly switches between, which is kind of a cool thing. It seamlessly switches between Bluetooth 5 and AirPlay over Wi-Fi. So if you have an iPhone and you're playing music to it and you step out of Wi-Fi range, then it will just connect directly to the phone over Bluetooth. So it'll be interesting to see how well that works, because lots of different companies make lots of different promises about seamless switching. But if it does work, I would be even more sold on getting one of these.
Yeah, I also love the fact that it just charges on a Qi charger, because I think it ships with a special one in the box. But there's just you can also just stick it on a Qi charger, which is great.
Oh, because, any Qi charger? Wow.
Yeah, wirelessly charge Roam with any certified Qi charger or the included cable. Which is great. And the included charger features. The wireless charger set is extra, it looks like. So
but it's compatible with any Qi charger. So even if you don't get the wireless charger itself, if you've got a Qi charging pad, then it can charge with that.
Yeah.
That is neat. Okay, Sonos, you've pretty much sold me on this thing, because I have this UE Boom that I have had for ages, and I love it. It's fantastic. I listen to music or podcasts or audiobooks while I'm in the bathroom as well, showering. And it's great. The one thing that is troublesome about it is the charging. It has wireless charging, but it's proprietary wireless charging. And so you have to buy the puck in order to use that. And so that's an extra $35. So I've always just opened up the port and plugged it in whenever it came time to charge. But with this, there's no need to buy a special proprietary charger. You can use it with any Qi charger you have. And I've got, at this point, several that I could set it on and use. So once I hear back from you on sound quality, I may end up investing in one of these Sonos Roam speakers. Kind of neat.
Well, my parents were given a Sonos One by me for Christmas, and they are consistently messaging me how impressed they are with the sound quality. Obviously, that's quite a bit larger. It's the same size as the Play One, and that's got AirPlay built into it as well. And they absolutely love that. And I think the key for this is the ease of AirPlay, because you can just pick music on your phone and then just send it wherever you need to go. And I love being able to talk to my HomePod and say, play music everywhere. And it just does, because that's perfect. So.
All right, let us move on to the questions this week. We have one question that comes from Kevin. Kevin writes in to ask, actually, Rosemary, why don't you tell us what Kevin has asked us?
Well, I believe, if I remember correctly, this is the same Kevin who sent us a request to the shortcut segment of the show. And he says, Siri search results on the iPhone. If you ask your HomePod a question, sometimes it replies saying it will send the results to your iPhone. Question is, where in the world on the iPhone do you find the results? Message dictated using iOS. Well, Kevin, now, if you're not seeing anything ever pop up on your iPhone, then I'd advise you to double check some things. Make sure your HomePod and your iPhone are on the same wireless network. Listen to which iPhone it's telling you it's going to send it to. However, when it sends you that then it should pop up an image. And I've put a screenshot right here so that we can see. So I was asking for some information about kangaroos earlier, and it just sent it over to my iPhone, and I picked up my iPhone and looked at it. It unlocked, and voila, this is what happened. So that is what should happen. Now, this times out pretty darn quickly. So if you don't go and look at your phone for 10 minutes, then that search result will be gone. You'll need to remember your question and ask, your HomePod, or straight up ask your phone. But it should send it over quite quickly. So listen to what device it says it's sending it to, and then pick up that device straight away, and it should be right there for you so that you can get those results.
I see. So that's probably what it is that the person Kevin is not looking at it soon enough for that to take place.
Yeah. I've done that a couple of times, and I've thought, oh no, I'll just go to the bathroom. And then of course I come back and I forget what my question was and why it was so critically important. But there we go.
Got it. All right. Up next is our app caps, our app picks of the week. And now it's time. I've been told that we don't have to wait until the end of the song.
We match.
No way! Holy moly. We did not plan this, folks who are tuning in. For listeners out there, I am currently wearing a hat that says mustard, and Rosemary is wearing a hat that is a hot dog with mustard on it. Holy moly, this is pretty hilarious. Folks, this is our App Caps segment, our app picks of the week. These are the apps that we are using and loving. They could be new apps that we're excited to tell you about, or apps we've been using for years that we want to share with you. And we wear silly hats during this segment to honor those picks. So Rosemary Orchard, the hot dog hat wearer, tell us, what is your app pick of the week?
Well, my app pick of the week is a great app called GIFwrapped. And this is GIF as in GIF, as in the animated images. And what I love about this app, of course, it's free to download. And there's a optional in-app purchase of $4.99 a year or 49 cents a month. But GIFwrapped allows you to save GIFs so that you can reuse them again and again. So I have this wonderful, slightly judgmental cat who's just sort of looking at you, adjusting her ears, and then she just looks off to the side. And I love this because I can go in there anytime and easily just say, hey, I want to share that image. And then I can send that to somebody. So if I tap on messages, then I can send that, for example, over to Mikah. And voila, there we go. That's done. But GIFwrapped isn't just for saving things like that. It's got a surprise me button, which will then do a random search. These are all safe for work searches. Or you can, if you swipe up, then you can see your recent searches. So for example, I was recently searching for bats, lost, maze, minotaur. You can also take images like your live photos and convert those. Or you can search for categories such as love. And then it'll come up with things and it'll show you those. So you can look for that. But where GIFwrapped really excels is right here inside of messages. It has a messages app. So I can see my favorites right here. So if I'm really excited about something like the shortcuts corner, then I can send that off to Mikah. Sorry for the spam, Mikah. And then I also have the search. So for example, if I wanted seal, then I might be able to find something with a seal. I was hoping for a seal of approval, which would be a seal approving of something. Perfect. There we go. That's Shortcuts Corner. It's officially approved with a seal. And I just love this application. It's so great. It's small, it's simple, it's beautifully designed. If you pop into the settings, then you can see exactly what premium gives you. So for example, no banner ads, you can bookmark searches, you can go through pages in the preview. There are different app icons. I'm on the beta as well, so I've got some other things. It also syncs, and it can sync using either iCloud Drive or Dropbox, so that you can have the same things appear on your iPhone and your iPad. There are advanced settings where you can control things like pixel density. I love the fact you can change the app icon, so I've gone with purple. It is, of course, my favorite color. And you can also just see how much storage it's using overall. You can do things like empty your caches. So if you're running out of space on your iPhone, then you can slim it back down. And then, of course, it's got a link to the system settings where it should, voila, see. So you can say, actually, you know what, I don't ever want to use mobile data for this, and toggle that off. And I just love it. It's a great application. It works so well. I was very fortunate. I did meet the developer at WWDC a couple of years ago, and he's a lovely guy. And you know, it's nice to see a really simple app that's really well done, and it's got this whole user guide inside of it as well, which has things like, "Hey, why isn't this animating?" And then you can go through and look at it, and it says, "Oh wow, not everything actually supports this," and so it's pretty good at just helping you learn about how all of this cool stuff works. And of course, you can enable that messages app. It's also in the share sheet. So I'm frequently on Reddit looking at cats. And I can save any of the fun ones of cats. Like, for example, that judgmental cat that I had earlier, that came from Reddit. And I just saved that so that I could reuse it. And of course, I have my favorites right there. Wow. Which,
I love it.
Yes. So yeah, that's my app pick for the week.
Yes, GIFwrapped or GIFwrapped, which that second one sounds better because then it sounds like gift. So that's,
exactly, yeah, that's why I was referring it to that the entire way through.
All right, my app cap this week is one called WOMBO, which is this very interesting artificial intelligence app that lets you create lip-synced video of photos. So I will show you the process. I won't be able to show you the audio, but instead we're going to have some clips that Anthony has created. But here I will show you what it looks like when you use a photo that's built in. So I'll choose Let's Go. And it says, hold the camera at eye level, look directly into the camera, and WOMBO works better without your teeth showing. So I'm going to be quiet here for a second.
Oh, Mikah being quiet. Wow. I would love a singing segment of the show right here.
And then I get to choose the music that I want. All Star by Smash Mouth is a new addition that I think just came in today. One of the most popular one has been Numa Numa. So I'll choose that one. And again, you aren't able to hear this, but you tap on the music that you want and it actually plays that music. And then you hit the WOMBO button at the bottom, processes it. This is where it's using artificial intelligence to kind of figure out what part of the video are the eyes and the mouth and the head and what the background of the photo looks like, and then using that to rebuild the clip and add motion.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking
This is
kind of
amazing.
dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead.
So I think, Anthony, you'll have to, did you take a photo while I was talking? And that's fantastic.
I did that big show. Yeah.
Beautiful. So yeah, he was able to take a photo of me and do that while I was, in the midst of the show, and then get it processed. You can see that it does take a while. There is a premium version of you can get it for free. There's a premium version of the app that gives you, it takes away the ads and it gives you what they call priority access. So you kind of get the processing on the server before other folks. This is the thing about this. There's one of Leo's avatar. The thing about this is that it is a new app, or a newer app rather, that is slowly getting a lot of attention. And so the servers have been a little bit overloaded lately. So you might struggle to get your WOMBO processed quickly. And that can end up taking a little bit longer to get it done. But as this shows, I think that avatars can kind of be better.
Oh, wow. Star Trek.
Oh,
Trooper.
I had no idea.
Stormtrooper, sorry. Star Trek Trooper. What am I? I know the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars. I am so sorry, people. I do know the difference. This is brilliant.
That's kind of
need
amazing.
This
That may be the best one yet. That one is incredible. That's incredible.
Oh my God, I absolutely love this.
Mine is still processing, so that shows you the server load that they're dealing with right now. Oh my God.
This is from Burke.
Wow.
I feel good. I knew that I would not. So good. So good. I got you.
So you get the idea. There are only so many songs that are available on the WOMBO, including Never Gonna Give You Up, so you can Rickroll people, Numa Numa, Boom 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 Boom, which is a song that I hadn't heard until this. Game, what does that say? Same Done? What's that one below there? Oh,
Dame Dane.
Dame Dane. Dreams by, wait, I didn't see Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. Oh, that's because it's not there anymore. Thriller is on here. Don't Ya, the Ding Dong song. And yeah, Witch Doctor, that was ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah.
Yes. I always forget how that sounds, but yes, I love these. This is amazing.
So this
I
is
apologize in
WOMBO.
advance, Mikah, if you get loads of these sent from me.
I will happily receive those. That'll be a great time. But you can get WOMBO in the App Store for free. The in-app purchase, as I said, gives you sort of priority access to kind of get bumped up in line to have yours get produced. So it is kind of incredible how well it works. And my family has been having so much fun using WOMBO now to play around. So I ended up seeing this in passing in the Slack channel yesterday for TWiT, and downloaded the app just to see what it was all about, and then have been pretty much been playing with it ever since then. So yeah, WOMBO away, wombo.ai to check out WOMBO. Oh, now it finally goes. And I can't remember what song I chose now, but now, as you could see, it's taken my clip and added the music to it.
I may have already downloaded the app, Mikah.
Yes,
this
good.
is going to be
Very
amazing.
Good. Alrighty, folks, that brings us to the end of yet another episode of iOS Today. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered, all you do is send those to iostoday@twit.tv. You can send them in video form, in audio form, or you can send us text. And of course, now you can tweet at us with the hashtag #AskIOSToday. In any of those places, it'll get swept up, and we will see those in our special document that stores all of your questions. You can, of course, tune in live to see all of the funny moments, the nonsense, and everything else by going to twit.tv/live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern or 11 a.m. Pacific. And that is how you can check out the show that way. But the best way to get the show is by going to twit.tv/iOS, because by going there, you can subscribe or follow, as Apple is now saying, the show in audio and video formats on all sorts of platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, etc., etc. And Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow all the great work you're doing, where do they go to do that?
The best place is rosemaryorchard.com, and that has links to me on all of the places, including micro.blog on Twitter, where my handle is Rosemary Orchard. And Mikah, where can people find you?
I am at Mikah Sargent on pretty much all of the social media networks, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUAHUA.coffee, which has links to many of the places I am online. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week on iOS Today. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and I want to tell you about my show, Hands on Photography, here on TWiT TV. Each and every week, Thursday that is, I like to sit down and share with you the best tips and tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer. And it's not always about Photoshop. It's not always about just having the biggest and baddest and bestest camera. It can be the simplest of things, like leave your eye open when you're looking through the viewfinder. All of these simple tips can really help step your photography game up. So subscribe to the show today. That's twit.tv/hop. And I look forward to talking to you soon.